in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, minutes ago, literally, releasing emails that they say were written by Jeffrey Epstein that explicitly, specifically mentioned Donald Trump by name and in context that we really haven't heard before.
These are emails that show Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name multiple times in private correspondence that he had with people, including Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously his longtime associate and accomplice, and also the author Michael Wolff, in a time span of about the last 15 years or so in these emails.
Okay, so let me get this straight. A leaked government memo drops in Washington, and within 48 hours, Democrats and Republicans are calling for Donald Trump's arrest. Not an investigation, not a hearing, an arrest. Are you kidding me? This isn't some Twitter rumor. This isn't fake news. This is happening right now in the nation's capital, and the entire city is losing its mind. We're talking resignations. We're talking public meltdowns on the House floor. We're talking a social media firestorm that's got everyone from your aunt to your Uber driver talking about it. And here's the kicker. The memo allegedly ties Trump directly to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Yeah, that Epstein. The one everyone said was handled and buried and done with. Turns out, maybe not so much. Come on, how many times are we going to do this dance? Every few months, there's some new revelation, some new document, some new bombshell that's supposed to finally be the thing that brings Trump down. But this one feels different because it's not just Democrats screaming into the void anymore. We've got Republicans, actual sitting Republican lawmakers breaking ranks and demanding answers. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Now, these are coming out from the House Oversight Committee. They had issued a bipartisan subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate, John, as you know, earlier this year. And so they've gotten their hands on a trove of documents. And these are emails that included Jeffrey Epstein on them. They were sent either to him or from him that mention Donald Trump before he was in office and also while he was in office during his first term. Jeffrey Epstein's own words in these emails that have been released by the House Oversight Committee. And in one of them, Jeffrey Epstein says, and I should note, Trump did not send or receive any of these messages. He's not a party to these emails, John, but these are emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. This is one from April 2nd, 2011. And in this email, Jeffrey Epstein writes to Ghislaine Maxwell and says, quote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. There's a name that's redacted, which the House Oversight Committee has said is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. Obviously, we have not been able to independently confirm that because her name is redacted from this email."
Let me paint you the picture. Over 200 signatures on a House petition demanding the Department of Justice release every single file they have on the Epstein investigation, 217 to be exact. And yeah, several of those names, Republicans, the same party that's supposed to have Trump's back, is now publicly calling for transparency on one of the most explosive scandals in modern American history. This is wild. And Trump, oh, he's responding exactly how you'd expect. He hopped on social media and called the whole thing, quote, a hoax and bull. Well, you know what he said. But here's the thing. His usual playbook isn't working this time. The base is still with him, sure, but cracks are forming, real cracks. We're seeing top conservatives demanding that Attorney General Pam Bondi resign over how these files were handled. Can you believe this? The same people who defended Trump through 2 impeachments, through January 6th, through everything, are now publicly turning on his own administration officials. But wait, it gets crazier. The BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, just lost its Director General and its new CEO, both resigned. Why? Because Trump threatened a $1 billion lawsuit over a documentary they aired that allegedly connected him to both the Capitol riot and the Epstein scandal. $1 billion. That's not a typo. And 2 of the most powerful media executives in the world just walked away rather than deal with the heat. So let's be clear about what we're watching here. This isn't just another news cycle. This isn't just another controversy that'll blow over by next week. This is a full-blown political earthquake happening in real time, and the aftershocks are going to be felt for months, maybe years. You've got lawmakers from both parties demanding action. You've got media executives resigning under pressure. You've got internal party warfare breaking out in the GOP. And at the center of it all, a leaked memo that supposedly contains information that was kept from the public for years. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, here we go again, another nothing burger, another conspiracy theory that's going to fizzle out. And hey, maybe you're right. Maybe this is all smoke and no fire. But here's why this time feels different. The sources aren't anonymous bloggers. These are actual government documents, actual emails released by House Democrats that show, according to them, direct links between Trump and Epstein's activities. We're talking about claims that Trump spent hours, literal hours, in Epstein's house with one of his victims. That's not speculation. That's what the released emails allegedly show. And the pressure? It's not coming from the usual suspects. Yeah, Democrats are pushing hard. That's expected. But when you've got members of Trump's own party breaking formation, when you've got conservative voices saying, wait a minute, we need answers here, that's when you know something bigger is happening. This story has everything. Sex scandal, government cover-up, political backstabbing, media drama, international lawsuits. It's got more plot twists than a Netflix series. Except this is real life, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The timing alone should tell you something. We're heading into the midterms. Republicans are trying to hold on to control, and instead of focusing on policy wins or economic messaging, they're dealing with internal chaos over a scandal that should have been put to bed years ago. Except it wasn't put to bed, was it? It was swept under the rug. And now that rug is being pulled back, and everyone's scrambling to explain what's underneath. So buckle up, because what I'm about to walk you through, the details behind this memo, the players involved, the implications for 2026 and beyond, it's going to blow your mind. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why Washington is in complete meltdown mode right now. Let's dive in. Alright, so here's what actually happened. And trust me, the real story is even messier than the headlines suggest. It starts with emails. Not just any emails, but correspondence that House Democrats got their hands on and released to the public on November 11th. These aren't leaked texts from some anonymous source. These are official documents that went through a congressional release process. And what do they show? According to multiple reports, these emails link Trump much more closely to Jeffrey Epstein than we previously knew. We're talking about specific claims, direct quotes, allegations that Trump spent significant time at Epstein's properties with people who later became known as Epstein's victims. Now, let's pause here for a second, because I know some of you are already getting defensive and some of you are already celebrating, and both reactions are missing the point. The point isn't whether you love Trump or hate Trump. The point is, why are these emails just now becoming public? Where have they been? Who's been sitting on them? And why is it taking a petition with over 200 signatures to force the Department of Justice to release the full investigation files? Those are the questions that should have everyone, regardless of political affiliation, absolutely furious. Because here's the thing about government transparency. It's not supposed to be selective. It's not supposed to depend on who's in power or which party benefits from the information. If there are investigative files that involve a former president, a current president, or any public official, the American people have a right to know what's in them, period. End of story. But that's not how it works, is it? Information gets classified, files get sealed, reports get redacted, and the public, we're supposed to just trust that the people in charge are making these decisions in our best interest. Yeah, right. So when this petition started circulating in the House, demanding full release of the Epstein investigation files, it picked up steam fast, like really fast. We're at 217 signatures now, and that includes Republicans. Let me say that again. Republicans are signing on to a petition that could potentially expose damaging information about a Republican president. This is wild. And it's not just backbenchers either. We're talking about lawmakers with real influence, people who've been loyal to Trump for years, suddenly saying, hold on, we need to see these files. What changed? What's in that memo that's got even Trump allies breaking ranks? Well, according to reports, the memo outlines connections that go way beyond what was publicly known. We're talking about timelines, locations, witnesses, stuff that was supposedly investigated years ago but never made it into the public record. And now that some of this information is leaking out, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Trump's response, predictably, was to go on the offensive. He took to social media and called it a hoax. He said it's all bull. He blamed Democrats for playing politics. And look, that's his standard move, and it usually works. His base rallies around him. The opposition gets dismissed as partisan hacks, and the news cycle moves on. But not this time. Because even within conservative circles, there are people saying, wait a minute, if this is all fake, then release the files and prove it. If the emails are taken out of context, show us the full context. If the allegations are baseless, let's see the evidence that proves they're baseless. And that's where Attorney General Pam Bondi comes in. She's the one who's supposed to be overseeing the Department of Justice right now. She's the one who controls access to these files. And increasingly, conservatives are pointing at her and saying, why aren't we seeing full transparency here? what's being hidden, and why. Some top conservative voices are now openly demanding Bondi's resignation, not because they think Trump is guilty of anything, but because the appearance of a cover-up is almost as damaging as an actual cover-up. When you've got nothing to hide, you don't hide things. It's that simple. Come on, this is like government accountability 101. And then, as if the domestic drama wasn't enough, we've got this whole international situation with the BBC. So here's what happened there. The BBC aired a documentary, and according to Trump's team, they edited footage in a way that was deliberately misleading. Specifically, they allegedly doctored parts of a report that connected Trump to both the January 6th Capitol riot and the Epstein scandal. Now the BBC has admitted there was an error in judgment. Their own chair issued an apology saying the edit created the wrong impression. But Trump, he's not accepting the apology. He's threatening a $1 billion defamation lawsuit. $1 billion with a B. And the result? The BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, resigned. The new CEO, Deborah Turnus, resigned. Two of the most powerful figures in British media, gone because of the pressure from this lawsuit threat. Can you believe this? Whether you think Trump has a legitimate case or not, the fact that a lawsuit threat from an American president can cause that level of disruption at one of the world's most respected news organizations, that should make everyone a little uncomfortable. Because that's power. Real power. The kind of power that makes institutions blink. And it raises a bigger question. What happens when political figures have enough leverage to make media organizations think twice about what they report? We can debate all day about whether the BBC's edit was fair or unfair, but the precedent being set here is dangerous regardless of where you stand politically. This isn't about defending bad journalism. If the BBC screwed up, they should own it. But the scale of the response, the threat of a $1 billion lawsuit, the resignation of top executives, that's not proportional. That's intimidation. And it works. Because now every news organization covering Trump has to think twice. They have to ask themselves, is this story worth the potential lawsuit? Is this edit worth losing our jobs over? And when journalists start asking those questions, the truth becomes secondary to survival. But let's get back to DC, because that's where the real action is. The memo, the emails, the petition, all of it is converging into this perfect storm of political chaos. And it's happening at the worst possible time for Republicans. We're heading into 2026, midterm elections. Every House seat is up for grabs. A third of the Senate, governorships, state legislatures, the whole deal. And right now, the Republican Party is eating itself alive over this Epstein stuff. Democrats are predictably having a field day. They're hammering the transparency angle. They're talking about accountability. They're painting Republicans as either complicit in a cover-up or too weak to stand up for the truth. And you know what? It's working. Because when you've got actual Republicans breaking ranks and demanding answers, it gives Democrats all the ammunition they need to say, see, even they don't trust their own party on this. This is a mess. And for Trump personally, this couldn't come at a worse time. Yeah, he's not running for anything anymore. He's already in his second term, but his political capital matters. His ability to influence the party, to campaign for allies, to shape the Republican agenda, all of that depends on him maintaining his grip on the base and keeping the party united. Right now, unity is falling apart. The base is still mostly with him, sure, but the cracks are real. And if more information keeps dripping out, if more emails surface, if that full DOJ file release actually happens, those cracks could turn into fractures. The establishment Republicans, the ones who never really liked Trump to begin with, they're seeing an opening. They're thinking maybe this is our chance to take back the party. Maybe this is when we can finally move on from Trump and get back to traditional conservative politics. But the MAGA base, they're not going anywhere. They still see Trump as the guy who fights for them, who stands up to the establishment, who doesn't back down. So you've got this collision course happening within the GOP, and nobody knows how it ends. So yeah, this story matters. It matters because it exposes how information gets controlled in Washington. It matters because it shows how quickly political alliances can shift when self-preservation kicks in. And it matters because at the end of the day, the American people deserve to know the truth about what their elected officials have done. Whether that truth helps Trump or hurts him, that's secondary. What matters is that it comes out. Okay, so let's break this down into the pieces that actually matter. Because there's a lot of noise around this story, a lot of speculation, a lot of partisan spin. But if you strip all that away, here's what we're really looking at. Number one, government transparency is broken. Like completely broken. The fact that it takes a petition with over 200 signatures just to force the release of investigation files that should have been public years ago, that's insane. We're not talking about national security secrets here. We're not talking about classified intelligence that would endanger lives. We're talking about a criminal investigation into one of the most notorious criminals in modern history, and somehow, big chunks of that investigation are still locked away. Why? Who benefits from keeping that information secret? Because it's definitely not the American people. And here's the thing, this isn't a Trump problem. This is a systemic problem. Yeah, right now it's Trump caught up in it, but tomorrow it could be someone else. It could be a Democrat. It could be a member of Congress. It could be a cabinet official. The machinery that allows information to be hidden, controlled, and selectively released, that machinery exists regardless of who's in power. And until we fix that, until we demand real transparency from everyone, we're going to keep having these same fights over and over again. Think about it. How many times have we been promised transparency? How many times have politicians from both parties stood up and said, we're going to be the most transparent administration ever. We're going to drain the swamp. We're going to give power back to the people. And then what happens? Files get sealed. Documents get classified. Freedom of information requests get denied or delayed for years. It's a game, and we're not the ones winning. Number 2, the Republican Party is in serious trouble. And I don't mean that as some partisan dig. I mean that objectively. When members of your own party are breaking ranks over something this explosive, when top conservatives are demanding resignations from your own administration officials, when the response to a scandal is internal warfare instead of unified defense, you've got a structural problem. The Trump coalition that dominated Republican politics for the last 8 years is fracturing. Not completely, not yet, but the cracks are there. And every new revelation, every new document, every new controversy widens those cracks a little more. Some Republicans are sticking with Trump no matter what, loyalty above all. But others, they're starting to do the math. They're looking at 2026. They're looking at their own re-election chances. And they're realizing that blind loyalty might not be the winning strategy anymore. So they're hedging, they're asking questions, they're demanding transparency, because that way, no matter how this shakes out, they can say they were on the right side. They can say they stood for accountability. It's cynical, sure, but it's also smart politics. And it's happening right now in real time. The problem for Republicans is that this creates a feedback loop. The more they fight internally, the weaker they look. The weaker they look, the more Democrats capitalize. The more Democrats capitalize, the more vulnerable Republicans become in their districts. And that makes them even more likely to break ranks, which starts the whole cycle over again. Number 3, the media landscape is completely warped. The BBC situation proves it. Whether you think their edit was fair or unfair, the fact that 2 top executives resigned under the pressure of a lawsuit threat shows just how much power political figures have over media institutions right now. And it's not just Trump. Every administration, every political party, every powerful figure with enough resources can use legal threats to shape coverage. They can make news organizations think twice. They can create a chilling effect where journalists and editors start pulling punches because they're afraid of the consequences. That's not healthy. That's not how a free press is supposed to work. And the more we normalize it, the more we accept it as just part of the game, the worse it's going to get. So when you see stories like this, when you see major resignations at major news organizations because of political pressure, don't just brush it off as media drama. It's bigger than that. It's about who gets to control the narrative and how much leverage they have to do it. We need a media that can hold power accountable without fear of being destroyed for it. And right now, we don't have that. We have a media that's constantly looking over its shoulder, constantly worried about lawsuits, constantly calculating whether the truth is worth the cost. Number 4, and this is the big one, we still don't know the full story. Everything I've just told you, all the emails, all the allegations, all the drama, is based on partial information, bits and pieces that have leaked out or been selectively released. The full DOJ files, still locked away. The complete investigation, still sealed. And that's the frustrating part, because until we see everything, until all the cards are on the table, we're all just guessing. We're filling in the blanks with speculation and partisan assumptions. Trump supporters assume it's all fake. Trump opponents assume it's all true. And the actual facts, they're somewhere in the middle, hidden behind classification stamps and redaction marks. That's why this petition matters. That's why the pressure on Bondi matters. That's why the public outcry matters. Because the only way we get answers is if we force the system to give them to us. So, where does this go from here? Hard to say. If the DOJ releases those files, we could see a whole new wave of revelations, more emails, more testimony, more connections. Or we could see nothing. Maybe the files prove Trump's innocence. Maybe they show the whole thing was overblown. But either way, we need to see them, because that's how accountability works. You don't get to hide behind secrecy and then demand trust. You don't get to classify everything and then complain when people assume the worst. Transparency isn't a partisan issue. It's a basic democratic principle. And right now, it's being tested in a major way. For Trump, this is a pivotal moment. He's already in his second term, so he's not worried about re-election for himself. But his legacy, his influence over the party, his ability to shape politics for years to come, all of that is on the line. If more damaging information comes out, if the narrative shifts against him, his power diminishes. Simple as that. For Republicans, it's even more urgent. 2026 is right around the corner. Every controversial story, every internal fight, every scandal, it all plays into Democratic messaging. And right now, Democrats are winning that messaging war. They're the party demanding transparency. They're the party pushing for accountability, and they're picking up Republican allies in the process. That's a nightmare scenario for GOP leadership, for the country. Well, we're watching a stress test of our institutions in real time. Can Congress force executive branch transparency? Can media organizations withstand political pressure? Can political parties survive internal divisions? These are big questions with no easy answers, but here's what I know. Stories like this, stories that expose corruption, stories that challenge power, stories that make people uncomfortable. Those are the stories that matter. Those are the stories that change things. Not because they're sensational, but because they force us to confront truths we rather ignore. So, yeah, DC is in meltdown mode. Washington is losing his mind. And honestly, good, maybe a little chaos is what we need. Maybe it takes a full-blown political earthquake to shake loose the truth. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is really about. Truth, accountability, and whether we're going to demand it from everyone or just from the people we already disagree with. The memo dropped. The emails are out there. The pressure is building. And what happens next? That depends on whether we keep pushing or whether we let this become just another forgotten scandal in a city full of them. One thing's for sure. This fight is far from over. More information is going to come out. More players are going to get pulled into this. And the political landscape is going to keep shifting in ways nobody can predict right now. Stay tuned, because something tells me this story is just getting started. In the next chapter, it might be even crazier than what we've already seen.